time for another episode of the Animated Critics. Coming to you live from the studio, it's your favorite movie mavericks, T and J.
Hi, I'm T.
And I'm Jay. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Movies with the Animated Critics. Let's take a look at the weekend box office.
In at number one, we had Tron Legacy with $44 million. Now, I personally thought that this would do about 40 to 45, and you had it pegged a little bit higher at 60 million, maybe even more. Do you still consider this gross to be decent?
Well, it's always a tough weekend to open up right before Christmas when people are distracted with other chores and holiday seasonal shopping. So this is a good gross for this weekend. However, last year on this weekend, Avatar, which was something of a special case, opened up to 70 million. And I thought that this would hit at least a 60 million opening. I think it's kind of a letdown, but we'll see if this continues to play because it's going to have legs to make back that $170 million budget. You had a chance to see this before it came out, and you did an early review for our site, MovieMavericks.com. Now, did you like this film?
I enjoyed it a lot. I think that I'm not sure how the second weekend is going to go for it, just because I don't think that people are going to review it kindly, and they haven't been. Mainly that is because when you go in to see it, if you have low expectations, it's quite a surprising movie. But if you go in believing the hype and the epic advertising that has gone into this to sell it as some epic movie, it just doesn't do that. It's a very small movie.
You couldn't tell by the trailers, which make it look very large. And you and I have said repeatedly over the year on many of our shows that that is hands down the best trailer of the year. We both enjoy it. And I think based on that trailer, it opened up as well as it did. If you go back and look at the 1982 film, in adjusted dollars, that comes out to about $90 million for today's gross. So this will beat that. And really, they expanded on a brand that was 30 years old, and Disney has a number one opening again this year.
Debuting at number two was Yogi Bear with $16.5 million. I'd say it's about on par for this movie. I don't think anyone really was going to go see this. The trailers were horrible, and I'm surprised that with an $80 million budget that anyone thought Yogi Bear would have been a profitable movie.
This is a strong, crowded market for kids' films. You have Tangled, Narnia, Harry Potter still in the mix, all fighting for those dollars. Yogi Bear was positioned to be the next Alvin and the Chipmunks. It's not going to be that. It opened up to half of what those films' opening weekends were, and those films had great legs going on to 200 million plus. This will struggle to hit 50 and will be forgotten in 6 months. Expanding in fourth place was The Fighter with $12 million estimated weekend. On a budget of $25 million, this looks like it will be a profitable film and a success story for Paramount, Relativity Media, and Mark Wahlberg. Did you think that it would do a little bit better? I personally thought it would debut to maybe even 20 million based on the marketing and the number of screens it had this weekend.
No, this is about what I thought it would do. This is maybe a little bit less, but I pegged it for around 15 million. I don't think that the boxing movies are really going to garner any great attention anymore. There really hasn't been a great boxing movie that's done huge amount of business in a while.
These numbers for The Fighter this weekend are comparable for when Up in the Air went national last year around the same time, and that opened up with 11 million in its first weekend national release. And it went on, had a multiplier, great multiplier, and went on to 80 million with the help of Oscar nominations and whatnot. So if The Fighter can continue this pace, then it might have a chance of cracking 80 million as well.
In at number 8 was How Do You Know with a depressing $7.5 million gross. For a movie that cost $120 million to make, Sony has got to be upset with this. And this is now the second dog, really, that Sony's had this year.
Sony was on fire. They have now hit a little rocky patch. Not only is it the second bomb from Sony in a row, it's also James L. Brooks' second underperformer after Spanglish performed on the same weekend to low expectations back in 2004. And really the joke is, how do you know when your movie's in trouble? It's when it depends on Oscar nominations, Golden Globe nominations, kind reviews from the critics, and word of mouth, and it got none of those. This will tank. It's going to make less than Morning Glory with a budget that's 6 times that of Morning Glory. I don't know who okayed this $120 million budget, but heads might be rolling at Sony for this. I'm upset I even had to watch trailers for this piece of shit the last couple months.
And in at number 6, The Tourist, previously came out last week. It's had a drop of almost 50% and a total gross of only $30 million thus far for a $100 million budget. 2 major stars. This has got to be a disappointment.
Major disappointment. These numbers are exactly in line with what the word of mouth would suggest last week. People were disappointed by the film. The Tourist is a rare misfire for Angelina Jolie, Johnny Depp, and Sony. Luckily for Johnny Depp, after the box office failure of The Tourist, he has Pirates of the Caribbean 4 lined up for early May. This is Depp's return to the series, along with Uber producer Jerry Bruckheimer. Newcomer Rob Marshall will be taking over from Gore Verbinski. And I gotta admit, I really did like this trailer. It seems like they might have found the tone of the first film, and thankfully they dropped Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley, who became dead weight in the second and third films, from the screenplay entirely.
This really should have been the third film. You know, they should have wrapped up the whole Keira Knightley stuff in the second film, and this should have been the third film, or possibly this even could have been sandwiched between them. This could have been the second film. This is really a throwaway movie that looks completely enjoyable. This is just complete popcorn. Puts Johnny Depp at the forefront, which is where he belongs when he's playing a character like this, and especially a character that's become so memorable for so many people.
I absolutely agree with you. I thought the second and third film in the series got way too weighed down with its own mythology, and this looks like a lighter weight, fun adventure. And for a throwaway film, as you suggested, this is definitely going to make $1 billion worldwide.
After the summer that Bruckheimer had, he really needs a hit, and this is guaranteed for him. We saw Sorcerer's Apprentice just fail miserably, and we also saw Prince of Persia: Sands of Time just bomb, completely bomb.
Pirates will be debuting in early May, along with another box office hopeful, Thor, which just released its trailer, Marvel Studios' entry into the summer blockbuster. Now, they've had some good success with Iron Man, obviously. I don't like this trailer, personally. I think this looks very hokey, along the lines of even that Green Lantern trailer. Granted, it's visually arresting. Kenneth Branagh knows what he's doing behind the camera. I don't like the lead. It looks a little like Smallville to me, to be quite honest.
It almost seems like the people who made this just came off watching Beastmaster 2 through the Portal of Time, or even Masters of the Universe. You know, it's very 80s, early 90s cheese almost. And I'm very confused as to what the actual storyline is, because there seems to be at least 3 movies going on in that trailer.
And none of them look good. Anthony Hopkins seems to be doing something rather loudly and aggressively, but I'm not really sure what.
Well, he's very angry at Thor, and he's taken away his hammer, and now Thor is on Earth and runs around and apparently makes out with Natalie Portman, and then he gets his hammer back and smashes everything up, and the movie's over.
Well, audiences may have to be hammered to enjoy this film. Next May, we'll have to see. Universal Pictures' potential summer blockbuster was moved from a June release date to an early April spot now, which is for Fast 5, the fifth in the Fast and Furious franchise. Universal scored a massive opening in April of 2009 on the same weekend for its fourth installment, and they're looking to repeat that magic here. They've added Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, to this, and they've also brought back series regulars Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, and other familiar faces from the series. I think that the goodwill built up with audiences is going to shine in this, and this film is going to make at least $150 million and will probably call for a series of, if not theatrical films, direct-to-video films.
Justin Lin taking over on the third movie, and even up to this movie now. It looks like he's done a great job. He's worked in the mythology through the series and really built something up here. I love the way this movie looks like a Michael Bay movie. You know, it reminds me a lot of Bad Boys 2 with the Rio de Janeiro stuff in the beginning, and then when they pull the bank vault out and drag it along, knocking cars off and people out of the way, and this and that, it reminds me a lot of the Bad Boys 2 thing where they were knocking the cars off the back of the truck.
He just seems to be getting better, and I like that he's grown with this franchise. The franchise has benefited from the give and take, as has he, and he's really developed into a top-notch action director as far as I'm concerned.
And with The Fighter trying to reboot the boxing movies, in next we have Real Steel. This is a trailer that I'm surprised this movie even exists, to be quite honest with you. This looks like an early 90s flick. Explicitly, this reminds me of Robot Jox, if anyone was around to remember that at all, that old Charles Band, Stuart Gordon directed movie. And I can't believe this is real. Hugh Jackman will just be in anything at this point.
Hugh Jackman has mortgage payments to make, and I'm sure this is a film that handles that very well. He seems to be in good enough shape to play a boxer, but yet he is going to be the guy who's promoting the robot boxer. Or the trailer, like you said, I can't believe in 2010 I'm seeing a trailer for a film that I saw in 1990, albeit with better special effects. If you look at the release date, it does say it's going out in next October. So this is technically a teaser trailer, but I can't imagine the full-length trailer being any better than this.
My whole thing is, where's the danger in this movie? They're not in the ring with the robots. The robots are doing their movements, and I guess they're outside of the ring controlling the robot. What's the point? At least in Robot Jocks, they were inside the robots. There was some amount of danger there for them. What a strange premise for a movie, really. This is definitely the billionaires' Rock'em Sock'em Robot. I wonder if Bill Gates has a pair of these guys, and him and Steve Jobs just go at it every now and then.
And next up, we have Priest, starring former Academy Award winning actor Paul Bettany, who lately seems to be picking up paychecks as well, starring in genre films like Legionnaire and now this comic book adaptation. Although the trailer does look intriguing, I don't think this is as big a film as they're trying to portray in this clip. I think they're going for an epic scope when it might be a little bit more focused in size. However, it will be in 3D, so that will inflate the gross, and this does look to have maybe a decent run at the box office.
This trailer falls in the steps of movies like Legion. Also, even Repo Man. I'm even going to group Tron in with this type of trailers that really portray these movies with epic music underneath these images of just special effects, basically, and mood and atmosphere. And it appears like these are huge, epic movies, and they're not. They're very small, actually, and I don't know, it kind of hurts in the end. I hope that Priest isn't going to fall into that realm, but I'm really afraid that it is what it is. Up next, we have Transformers: The Dark Side of the Moon. The first 3/4 of this trailer is really enticing to me. It looks like a great premise for a sci-fi flick. Unfortunately, it gets ruined at the end when the Transformer appears.
I think this is a captivating trailer. It feels Armageddon-ish. It had this very awe-inspiring type feel to it, and then you kind of almost have an alien type vibe where these guys are crawling around the moon, and like you said, it almost is a letdown when you see that Transformers. And I say letdown only because that second film, everybody knows, wasn't as good as the first, and maybe this is they realize that and they can rectify the situation with this third film. At least they seem to be taking it a little bit more seriously.
This trailer is a vastly different movie than what's going to be ultimately delivered. And just look at the first two movies. That trailer does not match up with what those movies are at all, even close. So it's a bald-faced lie at this point. So it's a really neat advertising ploy.
I absolutely agree. If it's even included in the film, it'll be a very small section of the film, and then we'll be back to Shia LaBeouf and his zany adventures at college again.
Be sure and check MovieMavericks.com for early reviews of all the holiday releases, including Little Fockers, True Grit, and Gulliver's Travels.
And that does it for our show this week. Thank you for joining us, and make sure to check back next week for an all-new episode of This Week in Movies with the Animated Critics.